where Dad and I used to play golf. Used to be called the Running Fox. Now it is called River's Edge. My, how things have changed. But this was the Running Fox. Golf course still looks pretty much the same. And the clubhouse is all pretty much the same, but has a different name. And this is the park, city park, where Dad did a lot of his officiating. I spent a lot of time in bleachers with him. And in the background back there, if you can see the building from here, that building is actually where Dad took me to a wrestling match where I got to see the great Bobo Brazil and the Sheik. Different now. They've got a skate park and they've got a bigger playground.
And that's where we had our family reunions.
And that's the areas we used to have the family reunions. This used to be the Senate Grill when I was growing up. Looks like it's just an old vacant building now that they're doing some work on, but used to be able to go in here and play pool. Had hard wooden floors, and they had the best mashed potatoes with gravy and beef noodles you ever had in your life. And now, it's nothing. That used to be the old Williams restaurant, which was really nice.
It was an old two-story house, and they had the restaurant in the downstairs level. Now it's, I'm not sure what it is. It used to be the AEP electric building, but I think it's changed again.
Okay, hit the button, stop. And this is where the Tip Top restaurant used to be. It now says Leftover Shop, and that's where Dad introduced me to Greg Cook, who at the time was the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. And race car driver Spike Spears, who I used to sit in the stands with his family at the Atomic Speedway, they used to own a little gas station that was right there in this building. No more gas station. DC Lincoln Mercury Ford, where my dad worked, where I used to come and help and do inventory during the summer. Now it is thrift store. Beautiful. Wonderful how things change. And this is Ware Funeral Home. This is the funeral home where my dad, Grandma and Grandpa also? Yeah. Grandma and Grandpa also had their funerals. The day my dad's funeral, they had to place speakers outside, and this whole area here, all of this,
Because both rooms were full.
Were filled up because every place inside there was filled. And about that many people went to the gravesite.
When the first car was pulling into the cemetery, the last car was pulling out of Wares.
And that's the place. This is St. Mary's, the church in Chillicothe, where my sisters and I would be dropped off by my grandparents. We didn't stay in there very long. We'd wander down here and we'd get into the post office in that little section right there, and we'd kind of hide until church was over and Grandma would come back and get us. And sometimes I think I'm paying for every time I hid. Alright, here we are at the cemetery. Sis is going to put some flowers on the grave. A lot of people in the cemetery with the name Neff. I have no idea if we're related to any of them.
We are.
Alright, here's Grandma and Grandpa's place. Only only place I was ever at where I really felt loved and had a lot of attention, and that I was just safe and protected, and I could be whoever I wanted to be. And to them, I was just that happy little boy that played in the dirt with my race cars. And here's Dad's site. We really need to clean up this a little bit, but never got the time with my dad like I should have. A lot of that was my fault.
Daddy, I miss you.
You would have loved your grandkids.
Now it's going to take me a minute to find Mark.
I wish you were here, Dad. And yes, you were a veteran. Korean War, the USS Fort Knox. Destroyer and blowing away enemy mines. You'd have loved your grandboys, I'll tell you. And your granddaughter. Daughters, I should say. It's a shame they never got a chance to know you. And this is where Dad's house used to be. It was a little 4-room shack of a building. It had 1 bedroom, a kitchen with a little bathroom off the side of it, a little dining room when you first walked in, and then off to the left was a little living room kind of TV area that I slept many a night on the floor in front. I always knew when I was home here that everything was okay when I could hear the train. And it didn't matter how much it was making noise, it didn't matter how much it was banging around. I could always relax and sleep here. And now it too is gone, just a vacant field. And that was the Dairy Queen that we used to eat. Get a foot long with sauce, some fries, and a chocolate shake. Looks a lot different now, and what makes it even worse is the building is for lease. That's sad. Next to it was where Grandma and Grandpa would take us to get shoes. It's called Pickway or Pickwick Shoes or something, right? Pickway Shoes. Now it's a Payless, but at least that's still the same. It's a shoe store. Way down on the right, that series of buildings right there, Dad lived in an apartment, a little 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom kind of a place. And I remember being there a few times, and underneath was a cafeteria where, I think that's where he met Corey, wasn't it, Trace?
No, that's where she worked.
But she did work there. Yeah, my dad went through some hell in his life. He never really lived in a place you'd call nice.
But he was always happy wherever he lived.
He was always happy. This was a little store called Ginther's. We used to go in and get comic books and penny candy, and now it's also closed. It's just beautiful. My, how times change. It's strange. The more I'm here, the more I want to get away from here. But the more I'm here, the more I want to come back to here. I'll never understand that or ever figure that out. And that's where the L&K restaurant used to be. Cora worked there. I remember going there. And I also remember that's where my Uncle Glenn hit on her after my dad died. I hope that bastard's rotting in hell. Alright, this is where the corner market is now. It used to be just a little teeny tiny corner market, and that's why they called it the corner market. It was about 1/5 the size of this. And this is where Grandma and Grandpa would take us and get sandwich spread, and it was just the place to be.
Okay, this is the road to Grandma and Grandpa Holdren's house. I can actually drive this blind, but I don't think anybody would trust me.
Above us to the left is, I don't know if we can see it, but
Seymour's house.
Sits up on a hill, And during Christmas time, they had it lit up
Yeah, you can't see it now for all the trees.
for all the trees. And then down below in the valley is a house that they used to put a star on the roof at Christmas time.
That's his brother. That was another Seymour.
And you could always see that. It was just something that just always made you smile. To know that you shared the same beliefs of other people and that they were actually wishing you good tidings just by letting you know they were there.
And the little house over there belonged to the Speakmans. And he played on the basketball team, and Dad brought us there a couple of times.
This road was always fun to ride when I rode it on my motorcycle. I love this road, and I always used to think that it was just like the highway to heaven because of where we were going. We'd be going to Grandma and Grandpa's.
And some of Daddy's best friends lived on this road. Jack Hoylman lived in the houses back there.
And down to your right, Tracy, down to your right, when we get around this bend, you're going to see the little ponds that we always used to look at. And I always wanted to go over there and fish, even though they didn't look very clean. They looked very stagnant. But I always imagined that there were some big fish in there. And that's down here. I don't know if you can see it because of all the foliage.
That's Ross Lake.
No, they were right down, the little ponds were right down inside on the other side of these trees. They were just little ponds.
Okay.
Little tiny ponds.
You remember Floyd Myers? You were looking up on the Atomic Speedway?
Yeah.
His mom and dad and him lived in this house right here.
And there's a little pond down there that was kind of neat.
That was Myers' house. And this house back here, slow down a minute. This house back here sets on the edge of the creek, and it was Aunt Dawn's favorite house in the whole world. She loved that house because it sat on the edge of the creek.
Going down this hill, I always wondered what it would be like to go down this hill on a bicycle or on a sled in the middle of wintertime. Because you can make some turns, but you ain't gonna make that turn at the bottom, and you're gonna pick up a lot of speed before you get there.
And a lot of my friends didn't make that turn, but they didn't get killed or anything. They just ended up off into the woods. That's why they now have the guardrail right there.
Yep, if you turn left, you go to where Aunt Marilyn lives.
And Uncle Charlie.
And Uncle Charlie, and the dog pound used to be out there.
Still is.
Going back this way, there's a house up on the left I always thought was really neat, but I don't think it's there anymore. It was a really old house.
Yeah, Fry's.
Oh, it's still there, but it's behind the trees.
It's been remodeled.
But
it's an old farmhouse.
In about 2/10 of a mile, we're going to make a left-hand turn around this bend. And I remember when that volunteer fire department was built. Is that still volunteer?
It's still there, yep.
And Cousin Danny worked for him for a while. He was a volunteer fireman for a while.
And off to the right, though you can't see it for all the trees, is Ross Lake.
It's Ross Lake.
Okay.
But this used to be the volunteer fire department.
Right here. That's it. Springfield Township.
And going up the hill, when we get to the other side and start down is where Cousin Danny and Linda were married and lived in the house with Jeff and Todd.
Well, and the first house up on the hill belonged to our cousins. That house right there. And then
down here was a house owned by Danny and Linda.
Right there's Danny and Linda's house.
Jeff and Todd and I spent some time playing there. And then we're about to go on the left-hand side. The house was owned by John, what's his name? Troop?
Well, it was owned by his mother, Rose Moody. And she married Grandpa Holdren's brother-in-law.
Get this car. We might be going to the Atomic after all.
That's Aunt Rose's.
Trace.
Got it. I tried to get it.
We're going to pull into the driveway. Ah, shit, it figures.
What?
I'm going to pull off the woods. And here was where Grandma and Grandpa used to live. Now it's a trailer.
I'll let you do it.
All right, just kind of keep an eye on traffic.
They'll go around you.
And the way up that hill, I wish we could see more of it, was where we used to go picking blackberries.
And there was a pond.
And there was a pond. And here is where the Devil Man's house used to be, and it burned down. And normally I wouldn't be happy about anything, but considering how he was as a human being, it's probably for the best. There were never any houses way back there in the back at that time.
But if you go around the hill is where we went to the swimming creek.
And way down that hill, which we'll never be able to see from here, was the creek that Aunt Tracy's talking about. That and it was about waist high, and the water was always cold.
And you got a car on it.
And it had the little skippers on it. Now we're continuing on our way to Grandma and Grandpa Neff's house, now completely destroyed by Uncle Bob. And he took probably one of the most beautiful places that God ever created.
Out of spite.
And turned it into a hole. Just, it's terrible to look at it. It breaks my heart to even think about it. I cry inside every time I take a look at it.
Your Grandma Charlene and your Grandpa Dick wanted to buy the place when Grandma Dory died. And Grandpa wouldn't let him because he was afraid Dick's kids would get a hold of it. And he wanted to keep it in the family. So they gave it to Uncle Bob. Except in his will, he leaves it to the Kidney Foundation. So it's not going to stay in the family after all. This is your Aunt Tracy's gripey commentary.
Well, and by the same token, it was just wrong. What he did was just wrong.
Totally wrong.
He built some big ugly barns on it. He just totally destroyed the place. But I want you to see it. I want everyone to see it, and I hope that someday he realizes what he's done. It may be too late for him to do anything about it, but maybe he'll change his will. Maybe he'll leave it to somebody who will put it back to the way it used to be.
He won't. He left it to the Kidney Foundation. What are they going to do with it? They're just going to destroy everything and sell the land.
Used to go seining for minnows with Dick underneath the bridge that we're about to turn down and be on. And God, almost missed it. You can't see the hill or the property from here. We'd probably have to do a video of that from looking at it on Google Earth or whatever. But behind those trees was just the most beautiful field where we used to play baseball. And in the wintertime, we'd go down the hill on the sleds, on the toboggan.
Grandma Dory was always the first one.
And then I learned to fish and swim in that pond. Unfortunately, Uncle Bob has completely destroyed it and everything about it. But at some point in time, I'll pull it up on Google Earth and add that to this section of the video. But the bridge that you can see in front of us is where we used to go seining for minnows. It was absolutely the most fun. I'd walk that creek, and every now and then we'd run into some snakes. And by the house, zoom into the house, Trace.
I can't. I don't know how to zoom.
Hit the pause button then.
Here.
Now by the house where that white truck now sits is where I was bitten by a copperhead. Spent a few days being tended to by a doctor who still makes house calls. I still have the scars on my hand from it.
Back behind the house, there was a grape arbor.
Yeah.
And Grandma had a big old salt lick out there, and the deers would come out of them woods and just stand in her backyard.
And all that stuff has just been destroyed by a man who didn't give a damn for anybody but himself. Maybe not even care about himself, I don't know.
Over to the right was a creek.
Yep.
And Grandma and Grandpa used to have a hammock laid right by that creek.
And we used to lay in that hammock, and I'd sleep in there for hours.
Yep.
Wake up with little bugs all over me, but didn't care. Life was simple, it was easy.
And it was fun.
And you always felt safe and protected. Used to be the OK station right here, the OK restaurant where Grandma Holdren worked. No longer there. Just one more thing, no longer there. Okay. That's the state highway, or the county office where Grandpa used to work out of when he drove the truck and the plow for the state highway department.
All litters.
And right in here used to be litter gas, propane gas, where Dad used to drive for.
Now he may have moved.
And this is it now, and you can see the big buffalo on top of the roof. So.
Daddy worked for litters when his face exploded.
And it's still litter. Okay, you are now recording.
This building here used to be the Wholesome Bakery. Grandpa Don drove a bread truck and delivered bread all over, but a lot of the times in Columbus. And we would come home with him on the weekends, and he always had these little fruit pies for us and a drink. And that bread truck smelled so good.
So good.
I was probably 9 years old before I realized that was not an aftershave. But yep, he worked there.
There, I pause it. Where all these trees are now, on the other side of that fence, is where the Meade softball diamond used to be, and I spent a lot of time down here with Dad. If you look down through that area there by the power lines, there used to be a basketball court in the back, and it had some tennis courts, and the tennis courts are where I got stung in the eyes and actually literally could not see for 3 days. My eyes were swollen shut. How many days it was. And then over this direction back through there is where the Meade swimming pool used to be. It's now different. It's all blocked off and you can't get to it anymore. One more thing that's changed, and not for the better.
Yeah, it looks like you can drive through the back, up to the back, but you can't drive up into there yet.
Okay, hold on.
Now they must make you pay as you first enter the gate.
Could be.
Because it used to be you drove in and parked, and then you had the admission gate up there.
That makes me fun. That's one fucking thing that happened today that was good. One thing that was good, Trace.
Yeah.
It's back to being the Atomic.
See, you used to have to come all the way down here and all the way back there to park, unless you got stuck parking out in the field. And there's the track with the bank. But I don't remember that big ass old house being there.
What house?
Isn't that, or no, maybe that's just the way the trees are shading. There it is.
Yeah, the Atomic Speedway.
I was gonna say, if you park here, is there? Yeah, there's.
Nah, that's all right, Trace. We'll come to the races next weekend.
And the cars would come over the hill, and then they'd drive back around this lane, back into the pits, come back out onto the track. I remember that. Maybe they aren't having races tonight.
I don't know. But we'll find out. Because when we get home, we'll check it out. Well, that's just gate 3. There's more gates back that way.
Yeah.
Maybe you just gotta kind of keep going.
The smell of mud and gasoline.
Oil, the way they'd oil down the track to keep the dust down, and
didn't work.
Oh, check that out. The tent.
Yeah. It didn't work. All they did was make the mud really dirty. And God forbid you wore anything white. But every summer, I got a Junior Smalley t-shirt and a Junior Smalley sweatshirt. Every summer. And we would get a program, and boy, we thought we were hot potatoes because the drivers autographed our programs.
Yeah, I've still got a couple of pictures of me sitting in cars.
Yeah. There's one of you and me and Cheryl Copeland standing by one car. I think it was Bobby Morgan's. And Bobby was standing with us. And Cheryl was like this, and I was like this laughing, and you were leaned over looking, you were standing on the tire, leaning over your shoulder looking at the car. Ooh, I'm impressed.
That's a fucking fax number. Did I dial that one? No, it's no longer in service.
No,
The number's no longer in service.
maybe it ain't.
Yeah. You know what? Did you get the racetrack or not? From a distance, did you?
No, I didn't get the racetrack.
I don't know that you can really see much from here.
You can't.
You can see the stands and stuff.
Here, I'll let you take it.
Oh shit, it's still on recording. There it is, the Atomic Speedway. I would really love to hear the sound of those motors one more time. The dust, the dirt, see the cars flying around the track. It really mean a lot to me. And here's Uncle Glenn, otherwise known as Uncle Chub, and Pauline, also known as Aunt Dickie. She was adorable. You couldn't help but love that woman. Him, on the other hand, I'm sure there's a very interesting place in hell for him right now. I know I shouldn't feel the hate after all these years, but I do. Shawnee Lanes. Dad was here, I don't know how many times a night. And we're going to go ahead and go inside. And that was the pro shop. It's dark, but at least there's a little pro shop. And of course, where we used to eat. This is where the lockers were. They're not there now. There are some down by the other side, so I'll videotape them and show you.
And against this wall, over here, Dad's locker was almost to the back wall.
And they got a game room in here. There's what the lockers look like.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
I don't know, this is one of these. It's 157, 477. I think Daddy's was 109. I'm sorry, I've got to play the pinball machine.
Wow.
Okay, I'm gonna.
All right, Tracy thinks Daddy's locker was 109. That would be 109 right there. We'll get her and see if she's got the key and see if the key still fits it. She said she has the key. Trace has the key. We're gonna look and see if that's the one. It may have been rekeyed by now. But we're gonna see.
Where is it?
Been rekeyed, hasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, well, should